Welcome back to Terror and Urban Myths, everyone. I really can't thank you guys enough for your continued support, so please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this episode a like if you're enjoying the show.
And be sure to tell your friends.
Yes, to all your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so today...
Word of mouth is how we grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we're delving into this chilling tale that, well, it takes us back to 16th century England.
Buckle up.
Yeah, get ready, because this one is... It's really scary.
It's a nail biter.
We're talking about Ursula Kemp.
Oh, yeah.
The so-called Witch of St. Osyth.
Right.
Okay.
So Ursula's story is really fascinating because it's not just about one woman. It reflects like a whole period when fear and superstition, really overshadowed reason. Like, imagine England in the 1500s.
Wow.
It's a time of just massive change with all this religious upheaval and like constant threats like disease and famine.
Right.
People were just desperate for explanations.
Of course.
And oftentimes the easiest answer was to blame the supernatural for all these like terrible things that were happening.
So in this climate of fear, anyone who seemed different or possessed knowledge that other people didn't really understand could easily become a target.
Oh, absolutely.
So is that how Ursula Kemp kind of came to be seen as a witch?
Yeah, that's definitely a key part of it. Ursula was known in her community for her healing abilities.
Okay.
She was using herbs and traditional remedies to treat the sick, and she was helping with childbirth. She was essentially a lifeline for a lot of people in her village.
So she sounds very important.
Very, very important.
But at the same time, it sounds like this knowledge made her vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
In a way.
Yeah, healing and witchcraft were often seen as like two sides of the same coin back then.
Right.
So while some people viewed Ursula as, a gifted healer, others saw her knowledge as something that was potentially dangerous, possibly linked to dark forces.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a skill that we would probably admire so much today could be so twisted and feared back then.
Yeah, for sure.
It's wild.
And those fears, they were just easily amplified by all these rumors.
Right.
There were whispers that if you crossed Ursula or if you didn't pay her for her services, misfortune would befall you. Your livestock might suddenly die.
Right.
Their crops could fail.
Right.
Or, illness might strike. And so, these stories, whether they were true or not, they created this aura of fear around her.
Like this cloud hanging over her.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it sounds like the perfect breeding ground for suspicion and accusation.
Yeah.
Was there a specific event that led to Ursula being formally accused of witchcraft?
Yeah, there actually was. So a neighbor, a woman named Grace Thurlow, accused Ursula after just this series of tragic events.
Oh.
So Grace had, sought Ursula's help during a difficult childbirth, but ultimately, another midwife was chosen. And shortly after that, Grace fell ill, and tragically, her infant daughter died.
Oh my gosh.
It's really sad.
Yeah, in a time when infant mortality was so common, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess understandable that Grace would look for somebody to blame.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And that blame, it fell squarely on Ursula.
Wow.
Grace was convinced that Ursula had cursed her and her family out of spite for not being chosen as the midwife.
Oh, wow. So a personal dispute fueled by grief and fear becomes the catalyst for this witch hunt.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Wow.
And the person who was responsible for investigating those accusations was a local magistrate named Brian Darcy.
Right.
Who was, kind of known for his zeal in rooting out witchcraft.
Oh, no.
So the combination of Darcy's ambition and the community's fear proved to be this really dangerous mix for Ursula.
Sounds like she didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, it was a bad situation.
So let's talk about the trial itself.
Okay.
What kind of evidence was presented against Ursula?
Yeah.
What were the specific accusations that led to her conviction?
Okay. So the so-called evidence that they presented against Ursula was highly questionable.
Okay.
It relied heavily on coerced confessions,
Oh.
often obtained through intimidation or even, torture.
Oh my gosh.
And they also used the testimony of young children, including Ursula's own son, Thomas, who was only 8 years old at the time.
Oh my goodness.
It's hard to imagine the pressure that a child that young must have been under to testify against his own mother.
It's unbelievable. What did they claim to have witnessed?
Well, Thomas and the other children claim that Ursula had familiars,
Hmm.
which were believed to be these demonic spirits, like in animal form, that served witches.
Okay. Okay.
And so he described these familiars in detail. There was a cat named Tiffin, a monkey named Jack, a toad named Pigeon, and even a lamb named Titty.
Wow. These descriptions, even centuries later, they still have this like disturbing quality to them.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about the power of like fear and suggestion in shaping people's perceptions.
Oh, absolutely. And the court also relied on the concept of devil's marks.
Oh gosh.
So any unusual birthmark or scar on Ursula's body was interpreted as a sign of her pact with the devil.
Oh, so they were just looking for anything to use against her.
Exactly. The trial was less about seeking the truth and more about confirming what many already believed.
That Ursula Kemp was a witch.
Right.
So it sounds like, in a way, her fate was sealed from the beginning.
Pretty much, yeah. It was a very biased system. It really was.
Yeah.
And sadly, yeah, the trial was more of a public spectacle than a genuine search for justice. The verdict it was a foregone conclusion at that point.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what were their sentences?
Well, they were both sentenced to death
Oh my.
by hanging.
Wow.
And the execution took place on April 10th, 1582 in Chelmsford.
Jeez.
It was just this brutal end to a life that just became entangled in this web of fear and superstition.
It's just so tragic. But
Yeah.
did Ursula's death at least put an end to the fear and suspicion surrounding her?
Sadly, it didn't. In
Okay.
fact, you could even say it amplified it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Rumors started circulating about all these strange occurrences at the gallows.
Like what?
Well, some people said that a thick fog, suddenly descended as Ursula was being hanged.
Oh, gosh.
The very air itself was disturbed.
Wow.
And then others, they claimed that a flock of crows were, circling overhead.
Oh, no.
Yeah, their cries just adding to that grim atmosphere.
It almost sounds like something out of a gothic novel or something.
Yeah.
All these unsettling details just adding to the sense of Ursula's supposed power.
Right, and those stories, they were passed down through generations, and they really became part of Ursula's legacy. It wasn't just her actions in life, it was that fear that persisted, even after her death. And it's that solidified her reputation as a powerful witch.
It's almost as if her story became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers associated with witchcraft and the consequences of, crossing someone who's suspected of possessing these powers. So did those fears kind of manifest into any specific local legends?
They did. The most prominent one involves the ruins of St. Osyth Abbey.
Okay.
And people claim to have seen this shadowy figure resembling Ursula, wandering the grounds, particularly on moonlit nights.
Tuski.
Yeah. And some even said they could hear her cries echoing through those crumbling walls.
Ooh, it's almost as if she was forever tied to that place.
Yeah.
Unable to find peace.
Right.
It's like a classic ghost story setup.
Total ghost story.
Are there any other local tales connected to Ursula?
Yeah. There's another one. It's this chilling legend linked to a place called the Witch's Well.
Okay.
And it's located near where Ursula's home once stood.
Uh-huh.
And the stories say that she used this well for her witchcraft,
Right.
and that her dark energy still lingers there.
What do people say happens at this well?
Well, according to local lore, if you listen closely on certain nights, you might hear Ursula's voice coming from the well,
Oh, no?
offering a taste of her power to those who are brave enough to listen.
That's creepy.
Yeah. But like any, deal with the so-called witch, there's always a sinister catch.
Yeah, it's that classic folklore motif, the promise of forbidden knowledge or power, but with, a hidden price.
Always a price.
Yeah. It's fascinating how these stories endure, and they almost become like warnings, passed down through generations.
Mm.
Are there any physical discoveries that add to the mystery surrounding Ursula?
Yeah. There's this particularly unsettling discovery that has fueled speculation for over a century now. Back in 1921, during some construction work, 2 skeletons were unearthed
Oh, wow.
near the site of Ursula's home.
So what was so unusual about that? I mean, were they just old burials? What was the story?
Well, it wasn't just their age.
Yep.
These skeletons were found bound with nails driven through their chests.
Oh, that's a very specific and unsettling way to be buried.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. So it's called apotropaic burial, and it's a practice that was meant to prevent restless spirits from rising from the grave.
Oh, wow.
It was often used for those suspected of witchcraft
Oh, yeah.
in hopes of preventing them from, continuing their malevolent activities even in death.
Oh, wow. So because of where they were found and how they were buried, people naturally made a connection to Ursula Kemp and Elizabeth Bennet.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed to confirm that these women, even in death, were still considered witches.
Wow.
And the discovery reignited, interest in their story, and it added another layer to the existing legends. It really blurs the lines between historical fact and myth,
Right.
and it gives the whole story this really tangible feel.
It does. It makes you wonder if Ursula truly was a witch, as people believed,
Right.
or if she was simply a victim of her time,
Right.
misunderstood and feared because of her knowledge and her skills.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core question that lingers over Ursula Kemp's story.
Yeah.
Was she this malevolent figure who used her dark powers to harm others? Or was she just a woman whose knowledge and independence made her an easy target in a time of just immense fear and paranoia?
Right. A woman punished for being different.
Hmm.
It really is. It's a question that, you know, it resonates even today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. After all, we still grapple with, societal anxieties and how they can target individuals who don't fit the mold.
Yeah, that's what makes Ursula's story so enduring. It serves as this stark reminder of how easily fear and ignorance can just twist perceptions and lead to injustice.
Yeah.
It also highlights the importance of critical thinking,
Yeah.
of questioning narratives that demonize individuals or groups.
It's a call to be cautious, to look beyond the surface, consider the context of these historical events, and the potential for bias in the stories that are passed down.
For sure. I mean, there are always multiple sides to every story. And that's where the real work begins for us as individuals who are engaging with history. It's our responsibility to examine these stories and consider different perspectives and to resist the urge to simply accept what we're told.
Right. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. And in a world where misinformation spreads so rapidly, that kind of critical thinking it's more important now than ever.
Absolutely. And Ursula's story also raises this really thought-provoking question. Imagine if she had lived in a different time in a society that embraced her healing knowledge instead of fearing it.
Right.
Imagine her having access to modern scientific understanding and a platform to share her expertise.
It's fascinating to consider how her life might have unfolded differently. Instead of being branded a witch, she could have been celebrated as a healer, a pioneer in her field.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how many potential innovators and visionaries throughout history have been silenced or marginalized because their ideas just challenge the existing norms.
It reminds us to be open to new ideas, to value those who think differently, and to challenge the systems that perpetuate fear and prejudice.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a powerful message to take away from a story that's over 400 years old.
Really is. Well, on that note, we hope you found this exploration of Ursula Kemp's story as thought-provoking as we did.
And we encourage you to continue researching, to delve deeper into this fascinating and unsettling period of history. Who knows what other stories are waiting to be uncovered and what lessons we might glean from them.
Exactly. And before we sign off, don't forget to subscribe to Terror and Urban Myths for more explorations of history's mysteries.
Yes, and don't forget to give this episode a like if you enjoyed it. Your support helps us bring these stories to life.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of curiosity alive.
Thanks for listening.